Hi there, and welcome to Inside the Wooniverse, a podcast brought to you from the corner of Fringe in Maine. I'm your host, Colette Baron-Reid, and joining us today is a living, breathing, real-life goddess, Abiola Abrams. Now, Abiola is an award-winning author, and some of her books include African Goddess Initiation and the Sacred Bombshell Handbook of Self-Love. She is also an intuitive self-love coach, an oracle creator, and founder of Mau's Goddess Mystery School and the Goddess of Manifesting Tobago Retreat. Welcome, Abiola.
Hello, Goddess Colette. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me inside the Wooniverse.
Ooh, yes. Well, it was so funny when I was naming this. Remember, you and I talked about it, and you were like, I would listen to Inside the Wooniverse. Right? So
Absolutely.
So you are part of the reason that we called this. Now, it is super great to be with you today. You are in South America.
Yes. So just to give you a heads up, you may hear the odd rooster, dogs barking, cows, and horses. Who knew that rural Guyana, South America would be louder than Manhattan in New York City?
Okay, it's so great to be with you here today, and so fun if we have the odd rooster joining us on our podcast. But let's go on a journey, especially for the listeners who are meeting you for the very first time. You began where?
So I was born and raised, Goddess Colette, in New York City, actually. And you would think that there wasn't the odd rooster in New York City, but there actually was. I'm a first generation American, first person in my family born in the United States. My parents were born in Guyana, where I am. And so they did things the Guyanese way. So for a time, there was a chicken in my backyard in New York City. And if there's one thing kids love, it's being weird and different from everyone else. No. So it was a bit of a challenge, not only because my family was different, but because it also became an issue in my neighborhood. So my whole family was kind of bullied by a lot of other families in our neighborhood, often told to go back to our country and that sort of thing. And so it's one thing when as a kid, you can adjust to being bullied and being different and all of those things. But my whole family was actually bullied, which was quite challenging.
That's hard. That's really hard. So how did everybody manage over time? Because you have really strong, pretty amazing parents. So how did you evolve from there? And obviously you were driven towards the arts as a means of self-expression. So can we chat a little bit about that and explore that a little more? Mm-hmm.
Yes. So as you said, my parents are amazing. Anyone who's around me for longer than 5 minutes knows that I extol the virtues of my parents, or as I say, the well-meaning folks who raised me. And some of the things that made us very different from other people in the neighborhood was, for example, when you came into my house, there were altars present and, you had to take off your shoes. And my father, as a minister, was exploring also different relationships with different spiritual systems. So doing yoga, for example, now, which is commonplace, there's yoga on every corner, but yoga in the 80s, for a Black man from Guyana doing yoga was strange to people. So one of the ways, as you said, that I sought, to claim my voice was poetry, which naturally for me, growing up while hip hop music was growing up in New York City, became for me an expression through music, through hip hop, using the power of words. And I was in a group with friends of mine named Females Beyond Control, FBC, which I see as very much, it's a straight line from Females Beyond Control to being a hip hop artist in that group to being an author. And so at the time, I was also journaling. I was also writing stories. My parents are both writers. My dad is a self-published author. My mom would write her stories for us, but she has not been published yet. And so the power of the word, they're also both multi-hyphenates and teachers, the power of the word for me. I love words. And that was a key part of my creative expression. And so the beautiful thing that happens for any of us who've been outcasts or outsiders or, any of that is the moment where you realize, okay, I'm not going to fit in anyway. So I've got to just be me, and there was this Toni Morrison quote that I'm now remembering that was in one of my little journals that I had that I clung to, and I forgot it until this moment. And it was something like, she had nothing to fall back on, not maleness, not whiteness, not ladyhood. And so she very well may have invented herself. It was something to that effect.
So
yes. And those words, and hopefully it is a great ancestress, Toni Morrison, as I'm just remembering it now. Those words, when I read and heard those words, it was like, that's me. I get to invent myself.
Oh, that is so profound, because there is no one like you. I don't know anyone like you. I mean, you are a true, amazing, unique human being, and I love this. So I want to bring in the thread of divination into this conversation. So I've always noticed a relationship between poetry and divination. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, given that the two kind of move parallel in terms of how they help us speak to who we are, reflect on where we need to go, etc. So I'd love to hear your view on that.
Oh my goodness. Goddess Colette, now I just have to say something to the audience about just the question that you just asked me. The beautiful thing when you find your soulmate tribe, when you find people like the way that Colette and I magnetized toward each other and manifested each other in this big, beautiful world, is that the things that you thought were just so weird and abstract about yourself, they get, and you're like, oh my goodness, someone else thinks this too. So just thank you for that question. I didn't know that anyone else saw that and felt that. And so my cards, for me and any oracle card system or tarot card system, I see it as a communication device, as a way of us, being able to download messages from the divine. And poetry, is literally the way that the universe communicates with us, the language of the universe. And it's the same with the cards. And so when I see cards, whether they are my own or someone else's, cards that I resonate with, I should say, I see the image on the cards with the words and the name and the number, whatever is there, it forms a poem. It is a poem. It's literally like a poem that leaps off in a clear way, a clear form of communication, a clear messaging that is like a woof, is the way to describe it, a download, a transmission. And it is absolutely poetry. And there's poetry in everything that I do. My last book, African Goddess Initiation, there's poetry in my books before then. And my first book was a fictional book. And so for some people, it does make sense. Well, why would you write fiction? Absolutely. It was a fictional self-help book, because I have this love affair with words, with poetry, with communication, with the universe. And, the way that sentences go together is the same way for me that cards go together. That when you do a card spread, it's a sentence, it's a paragraph, it's a poem.
Yes. And so this is why, you didn't know that I thought this way too. Well, now you do. No. And because I also love words, and I think what I have noticed in your work is your lyricism. And that is what always struck me and why I loved your work so much. And it made perfect sense that we ended up to be connected to each other, because there is a quality of language that I think most people don't realize that we tap into. So Abiola, tell me, you have the most amazing saying, and because you and I both love words, and I know the people listening and are magnetized to this amazing conversation with you may love words too. What do you think words do?
Every single word that we speak casts a spell. So right now, and I just felt everyone energetically out through our universe get nervous, oh my goodness, what did I just say? Everything that we are speaking, words are spells in our mouths. So you're casting spells over your life with the words that you speak. And our great ancestress Louise Hay talked about this with her importance of affirmations, for example. We are spell casting. That's what affirmations are. They're spell casting. So you are casting a spell. So be discerning about the words that you speak over your life and over the lives of those who you love and adore. Every word you speak is casting a spell.
I love that. And I love how the saws, got louder when you said
Yes.
as soon as you said you're spell casting, and it went
Yes. Yes. And we are creating poetry right now with the streets of Guyana, with everything that we are hearing around us, so I believe that firmly. So, when the rooster is chiming in and the donkey, and there's a horse and buggy that comes through, and there's an ice cream, you'll hear from where I live, there's an ice cream man who comes through on a truck for most of us. And there's the same music here, but he's on a bike and he's got the ice cream thing, and it's the same exact Mr. Softy music, and he's on a bike. We're in concert. We're in concert right now with everything. Everything.
Oh, yeah, I love it. And, I think our conversation today also reminds me that a lot of people who see themselves on a spiritual path believe that everything external to us needs to be calm in order for us to be happy or peaceful, etc. That there's such as a relationship between what we think we need in the outer world, and you're sitting in the most outrageous, fabulous chaos. And we're talking about these really important things, and the world does not have to behave.
The world does not have to behave at all.
Beautiful. So I would like to take that thread back a little bit, right? When I look back on your journey through, needing to quote unquote figure yourself out, and then determining that you could invent yourself, and then you had hip hop as a first expression, and at the same time, because I know you were introduced to divination before that, right? And the two kind of went side by side, because it's a way for us, when we use language itself is oracular. When it is used in such a way that it elicits our spirit, right? It calls to our spirit. It is a little bit more obtuse, and there's a quality of that nuance, which I think is missing, in the way we communicate with each other these days. I think so that's why I love your cards. Your book was so profound because of that poetic quality. Because poetry is an invitation to the soul. Would you agree?
Yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And when you start to see things as poetic, when you start to embrace the poetry of the world, you see it all around you. Poetry is absolutely an invitation to the soul. And as you said, I was introduced to divination before that, and actually my first divination system that I used was the runes. And it's interesting because then I would make my own runes on paper until someone told me that I shouldn't or couldn't have access to runes because culturally it was out of alignment, which I totally disagree with now. But at the time, I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do anything that's out of alignment. And this person is saying this. And so I shut it down. But before we get to that, Goddess Colette, I want to just go even further back. I just remembered before then, before even using runes, my very, very first divination system was watching my mom, who would open, I forget what they were called, but she would get these. My mom is a devout Catholic, and she would get these little booklets in the mail, and people probably know what I'm talking about. And when you open them to a teaching, that's divination. So folks who are biblical, for example, who open the Bible and just find a teaching.
Bibliomancy.
Yes,
right? Yes.
It's bibliomancy. Yes, absolutely. And so that's divination. So a lot of folks, it seems like, oh, wait, it's a leap. But for many of us, like, you've been doing this, but you just didn't know what you were doing, that you were doing divination.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And it's so true. It's so true. So you are an extraordinary intuitive. I've seen you work. I've been on stage with you. You are amazing. Do
Thank
you
you.
have any remembrance of when you had like a big intuitive hit and you realized, wait, I know you shared this, that you felt weird, right? You had all this ability. Give me that moment, if you can remember one, or maybe a couple moments where you were like, whoa, this is real. I have to pay attention to this. What was it like?
Yes. So there were, of course, many different times, and I'm from a family where it's not weird to be intuitive. At this moment, my mom may be on the phone with my Aunt Bobsy, and they're talking about their dreams and what you dreamt and what it meant. And all of those things are very much a part of the culture that I was born into. And one example that I can share is when I graduated from college and co-created a hip hop theater show called Goddess City, which again, straight line from there to here. And at the time, at first, I was calling it something else. I had a different name for it, and I had been kind of dreaming these ancestors and dreaming these women and dreaming these goddesses who I saw as a part of the show. And when one of the women who didn't even end up staying and being a part of the show, but her only function was that she said the word goddess, which for me then illuminated the poetry that I had been dreaming and made it clear, what I had been seeing, and actually set me on a course for the next, 20 years of my life and beyond, because it awoke everything that I had been seeing and dreaming and thinking about and talking about, but again, hadn't put the language to it. And then with the word goddess, it was like, oh my goodness, that is what this is. That's what's going on. And so that was one of many times when my intuition then matched up with, the exterior world and seeing, oh my goodness, this is real. But as you know, this happens on a daily basis. When Colette and I were on stage together in Arizona, our cards started communicating with each other. There was, I can't remember, but it was something like, like I pulled a card that alluded to truth and she pulled a card that said true. It
Yeah.
happens. It is. You cannot make this stuff up, as I say 20 million times a day.
No, and it's so true. And didn't you, just to bring it back to that show that you did, isn't it now in the history book?
Yes, it is. So Goddess City, which I co-wrote with my friend Goddess Antoy Grant, is in the history books. It was published by University of Michigan Press in a book by Dr. Daniel Banks about the history of hip hop expression through theater. And it is documented as the very first hip hop theater play ever, ever, ever,
Wow.
ever. Yes.
Wow, what an accomplishment. What an accomplishment. I just love it. I just love it. So, let's talk about your book, African Goddess Initiation. You invite the reader into sacred spaces. That was really important, and into the spiritual rituals of your ancestors. And it was an extraordinary experience. I mean, the book is an experience. It's not even something you read, it's something that happens. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So as you said, it's not something that you read. It's something that you do. It's a book that you do. It's about ritual and developing a relationship with the divine. I love that you were so receptive to me sharing this work with you, and you gave me the most beautiful review and shared your thoughts with me personally and privately before it was out in the world. And I'm so grateful for that. Thank you, my sister. But I can't take credit. I can't take credit for being the person that said, hey, this should be out in the world and shared. The divine said to me, there was a time, I will share with you openly and honestly, there was a time, where, I felt like, well, no, this has to be just for these people, this has to be just for, and I was very judgmental about who was allowed what. And of course, there are some practices, there are some parts of Kabbalah, for example, that I don't have access to on a heritage basis. But it was spirit. It was the ancestors that said to me, No, 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 my daughter. We choose. We choose who joins the sacred circle. You do not own deities. You do not own the divine. You cannot contain the divine. This is sacred medicine. And as you know, as a generous, loving giver of your sacred medicine, Goddess Colette, if you have sacred medicine, something that you believe can enhance the lives and improve the lives of others, and you don't go knocking door to door, shouting it from the rooftops, then you're doing the same thing like that big pharma and all of these companies do, that try to contain and limit access to medicine. And that's what these rituals are. They are sacred medicine. This is, me downloading, me channeling, me transmitting what my ancestors have gifted me with and gifted us all with. It is, I know that I benefit, as I said, from Jewish Kabbalism. I benefit from Feng Shui. I benefit from Hinduism. I work with Hindu goddesses. I benefit from Chinese Taoism. I benefit from so many different cultures. And how magnificent. Oop, there's the rooster.
The rooster.
Yes. The rooster's agreeing. I benefit from the sacred medicine of so many different cultures. And I am honored that my ancestors, that spirit chose me to transmit this sacred medicine of theirs, to say, here world, you can benefit from this medicine as well. Yes, Rooster, tell them. Yes.
The rooster's really enjoying this conversation. And I think also the book is an invitation to really learn more, so that, like you said, you benefit. I really want to go back to when you said that you were told you weren't allowed to do runes because you had no cultural connection to runes, and yet runes as a divination system, right, is available to all of us. And when you have great respect for what it is and where it comes from, it's different. But you're also right in you saying we don't have access to everything. I certainly don't have access to everything, nor should I. But this is also an invitation for us to get more education, about cultures we don't know much about, potentially, right? Yes. So it's like a person who doesn't know this. It kind of, I think you made a comment once when you said it brings this to right size. It's like when you have like African Goddess Rising, your Oracle card deck, that's the correct name, right?
Yes, African Goddess Rising. But you have to say it this way, Colette. You have to say African Goddess Rising.
Okay, African Goddess Rising. Rising. It's that same sort of thing. It's like let's all come up with it. You bring it up. There's a sense of uplifting us and giving permission for us to be in reverence to. I think that's what I most got out of both your book and your Oracle cards. This is a beautiful education. If you don't know much about these cultures, go look and go learn and see the right, and see the beauty of others that you may not know about. And I think that was, I found the way you were so poetic about, again, we go back to the poetry, the poetic quality of here, come and learn. And that's basically what it was saying. And you have permission. Yes. That was really something.
Yes. And I think that is a really important part of our discourse today. That a lot of times we have these conversations and it feels like it's a black and white and either or thing. And the way that it was given to me, the way that it was gifted to me by my ancestors specifically, is that this work is, as I said, it is an encyclopedia, as someone called it, of African goddess magic and knowledge. And it is also at the same time a love letter to Black womanhood, a love letter to women who look like me, who didn't feel like they fit in. And it can be that, and at the same time be a book that gives sacred medicine to people who are not from my culture, who don't look like me, but who are looking for, say, a grief ritual or a self-love ritual or a specific relationship with a specific goddess. It can be those things simultaneously.
Right. Because again, this is something, again, so generous of you. And I know that you're saying it's not you, it's your ancestors and your goddesses that came through and say, no, this has to be for everybody. But I feel, again, still quite humbled by the fact that you have done that and that we have permission to read it. And to learn. For me, it was a learning. It was really about learning for me and understanding and having a lot more respect and reverence for what you were doing. It's phenomenal.
I just want to add this really quickly that, you know, African spirituality was purposefully demonized for a very long time. And we see that reflected in Hollywood, and we see that reflected in various places in our society. And so I am honored and humbled that this work does some of that, the lifting of illuminating and gifting people with this knowledge.
Yeah, it's something. It's really amazing. Okay, now you coined the term womanifesting. Okay, womanifesting. Can you share what the concept means with our listeners?
Yes. So there's a lot of talk about manifesting in the quantum. I say all the time, science is catching up with spirituality. You and I have talked about this, right? And so there are a lot of people now who are teaching quantum manifestation, which at first glance may look like, oh, wait, that's something different. And they teach and share about shifting into the quantum, shifting and the parallel universes that are happening and all of those things when it comes to manifesting. And for me, womanifesting is all of that and having a relationship with the divine. So it is very, at least from my worldview, very patriarchal to have a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, relationship with the divine where, you know, it's like, yes, of course we can just manifest and you can learn how to shift and switch into, you know, being able to magnetize toward you the things that you are wanting. Womanifesting is us having a relationship with the sacred because we are sacred. So it's not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, here's what I want, transactional relationship. It is a relationship where we are including altars and veneration and the dance and the poetry of our oracle cards and the communications that we are having with the divine. And it's a completely different thing energetically.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes. And I'm in so much of an agreement with that. I love that you put that in there because it is very much about the sacred and it's not about the form, right? It's really about releasing the form and really being reverent with the essence, right? You know, the essence. And it's always in service. That's the other thing. Relations are about service. It's not about getting. It's about becoming, right? It's different.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yesterday, for example, in my mystery school, we did a service to Goddess Oshun. I showed the Mawu sisters in my mystery school how to create an offering to this goddess on your altar. And the energy, she's a goddess of love and beauty. The energy was just so high, vibrating so high afterward, you know, because we had shifted. We had created a quantum leap. We had shifted the very tectonic plates, which is what I believe that happens every time, you know, we say yes to ourselves, every time that we fall deeply in love with ourselves. The rooster agrees.
Yeah.
Every time that we awaken to ourselves.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's saying when two or more are gathered in my name, there I
Yes.
am, right? There I
There
am.
I am. Yes. And one of the things that you and I have in common, with the conversations that we've had is that we get that. We see that it's not separate, that how you do anything is how you do everything, that everything is sacred. Everything has the divine in it. Even things that seemingly do not. It's all good. It's all God. It's all magic. It's all sacred. It's all quantum. It's all,
Yep.
yes.
And the all is in the small, right? That the all is in the
Yes.
small at always. Your work is mostly for women. So, what are some sacred rituals you wish more women did for themselves? I'm correct in saying your work is mostly for women, right?
Absolutely. I am not for everybody. I am very clear about that. So I speak specifically to women, and I have added and enlightened men. So for example, this past weekend, I did a goddess workshop for the College of Psychic Studies, and there were some of the enlightened men there. So, but I'm speaking to women, and I made it
Right.
clear to the men, like, okay, you are here, but I'm speaking to women. So you are here and you can benefit, but I'm speaking to women. So one of my favorite rituals is the sweetening jar ritual, which most people know from African American hoodoo, but it is also a practice that is done throughout the Caribbean in many different many different African diasporic spiritual practices. So the way that a sweetening jar is done at its most simple is if there is something that you are wanting to sweeten in your life, like say your relationship with yourself or your love life or your career or your relationship with abundance, you use this sweetening jar. And I'm going to explain how to do it in a second. I first wanted to share that a lot of people use this as a love ritual. And when it comes to love rituals, it's imperative that I point out, I'm not a favor of any manipulative magic, anything that feels like you're trying to make other people do anything. That is not what this is. And first, do no harm. That is not what this is at all. So I love doing this as a self-love ritual. So what you begin with is what you have access to. That's what our ancestors did. So you can use a mason jar or whatever jar that you have. This ritual I did over the weekend with a group, and I used an empty spaghetti sauce jar. That's what I have. And so you gather things that are sweet. The beautiful thing about a lot of this sacred magic is that it is literal. So if you want to sweeten the energy, you use honey, which is the nectar of Goddess Oshun. You can use brown sugar with things like honey and sugar. I recommend using honey and sugar that are native to whatever location you are in, because the honey is pollinized by the local bees and it is more active. The supermarket here where I am, the honey that I got actually was honey from New York.
Oh my
and
God.
So I use that. That's where I'm from. So it all worked. It all worked together. I also added in my sweetening jar cinnamon. Cinnamon is a quickening agent. It increases the energy around abundance. And so you can put cinnamon in your wallet, for example, or in your bag. You can use, cinnamon sticks. It quickens the energy. It accelerates the energy of abundance. So you can use that. I also used I put cookies and I put chocolate in this beautiful ritual, along with pieces of paper where you can either create a petition, something that you are calling in, or just a sacred intention. And with the divine, because as quantum physicists say, time is not linear as we think it is. It's all happening simultaneously. You write out statements of gratitude. I'm so happy and so grateful that I feel good about my body. I'm so happy and so grateful that I'm in a loving relationship. I'm so happy and so grateful that my job or my business is thriving. I'm so happy and so grateful that abundance comes to me easily and effortlessly in unexpected ways. So you write out these statements and you are then putting them in the sweetening jar and sweetening them with the honey, with the sugar, with the cookies, as I used, with the different elements, whatever it is that you are putting in your sweetening jar. So that's the beginning of that ritual, which you can use to sweeten your own self-love or sweeten your love relationship with someone else.
Oh, I love that. And then, so where do you put this jar? Do you just keep it on in your kitchen? You keep it with you? Where do you put it?
If you're an altar person and you're into altars, you can put it on your altar. You can in the new moon light. This ritual is a wonderful one for the new moon. So new moon is, dark moon. So on the night of a new moon, you can put it out and let it be charged by that energy. You can put it in the kitchen. You can keep it in the kitchen for a time. There is a wonderful great ancestor, Zora Neale Hurston, who I relate to so much, who was an anthropologist who wrote a lot about these practices. And she talked about visiting a spiritual doctor who in his kitchen at that time had a huge jar full of the petitions from everyone in the neighborhood with the honey, and it was overflowing. So you can do any and all of these things with it. All of us you're more intuitive than you think that you are.
Yeah.
You have more answers than you think you do. And so follow what your guidance tells you to do. This may be an 8-day ritual. It may be a 5-day ritual, depending on what you feel the prescription is, or if you're working with a spiritual teacher, what they tell you. So for example, one of the goddesses that I was working on this ritual with recently, she said, well, I've got little ones. She's got kids, and I was talking about doing it for 5 days because 5 is the number of goddess Oshun. She said, I've got kids, and if they're going to knock this over, they're going to, do all kinds of things with it. I said, then do it as a 1-day thing, and you just do it and then dispose of it at what I call the crossroads of your understanding. So traditionally, ancestrally, people would go to a crossroads where the roads meet in order to dispose of things in a way that is environmentally friendly, right? So you may not have access to a crossroads in Manhattan where I live. There's no crossroads where you could go and dispose of things, right? So your crossroads could be your garbage disposal. It could be your garbage. It could be whatever it is. Just do it in a way that is environmentally friendly, supportive of your spirit and your spirit guidance. And intention is everything. The universe, the divine, reads intention.
Right. So this is so fascinating. So when you dump out the jar, right, say you're dumping out the jar, is there a specific thing you say with the intention of saying, thank you, I am so grateful for this happening in advance, right? Because you're praising it in advance.
Yes.
In
Yes,
advance. So thank you for bringing in the sweetness into my life now. And then you dump it out. Then do you wash the jar? Like, what do you do with the jar after?
So you are ideally disposing of the whole thing. So if you're doing the whole ritual, yes, you can use, if you've got candles that you can put specifically on top of the jar and burn for 5 days in a row or however many days, then you do that. You are shaking the jar up every day and giving thanks, adding the shaking is life force energy. It's your ashe, your, prana, chi. It is life force energy. And so then at the end, you would either dispose of the whole jar, or you could open the contents, shake it up, blow on it, putting your ashe in it, depending on specifically what is in alignment with your ritual, and dispose of what is inside, and you would dispose of the jar as well. They say dispose of it. The ancestors say dispose of it and don't look back. So you would put it at the crossroads of your understanding, which again, depends on where you live. There are things that I have disposed of in Central Park in Manhattan. I was there.
You didn't do that. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
But I would not dispose of a jar, for example, in Central Park, because it's not environmentally friendly, right?
I get it. That sounds like a fabulous ritual. I think I want to do that too. And we do have local honey in my cupboard, so yay. Now,
Oh, good.
what guidance would you give any of our listeners who are finding themselves stuck with creating a life they truly enjoy?
Oh my goodness. I love this question because we all deserve to have a life that we enjoy. And I want to say to you, the beautiful humans who would be magnetized to this conversation, whatever it is that is in your heart, you are not too old. It is not too late. This is your moment. You're listening to this right now for a reason. So, for example, I talked about my mom and the way that she's a writer. And you noticed that I said she has not been published yet because that is a desire that is in her heart. So if there is something for you that you feel like, okay, this is a part of this is a desire that I have. Know that you don't have that desire by accident. Your desire is a creative force. And I want to say, particularly if you spell your name woman, your desire is a creative force. We happen to be in possession of the only body part that was created specifically solely for pleasure.
Oh,
And that is because, our desire creates. So whether or not you ever give birth to a human person, you are a creative force of nature. Your desire creates. The fact that we are able to talk internationally in this way is all based on someone's desire, different people's desire. Someone's desire created this microphone. Someone's desire created the internet. So if you have a desire, it's not casual. It's not, irrelevant. So you don't need to see the whole staircase. We just lost Bob Proctor, who was one of my spiritual teachers. And one of the things that Bob Proctor would say is that if you have a desire and a goal and you already know how to achieve it, how to go about it, then it's too small. So it's not that we are dreaming too big. It's that we're dreaming too small. So magnify whatever it is that is in your heart and begin to move toward your desire in little increments, little steps. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just see the step in front of you and the next step and the next step and the next step, and realize that the divine is speaking to you all the time. It's not an accident that you are here listening to this podcast. It's not an accident that I'm shaking you now energetically by the shoulders and I'm saying, come on, you can do it. There's something in your heart that speaks to you that you are being called forward to do. And I can't wait to find out exactly what that is for you, each and every one of you.
Wow. That was amazing. That was amazing. I want to underline what you just said about if you knew how to do it, it's too small. Right? The how. And don't you think we get so caught up in the how that we might have this deep desire and think, who am I to have this desire? And there's all these question marks about, well, maybe I don't count. Maybe I'm unworthy. I hear that a lot and it's so true what you said, that every single desire is God-given or goddess given, right?
Yes.
Desire is the beginning of creativity. And it is the spark of creativity. It itself is not the creativity. It brings about the creativity. And we don't need to know the how. We just need to know, when we imagine a solution and we don't know how to get there, that's not our job. We just have to keep imagining the solution. I love that. And I love that you stand for that. This is one of the reasons I love your work so much. And you're so passionate about it. And it's so, so important. So important. This was fantastic. So now, since your cards and my cards love to chat together, why don't we ask the universe to, through your cards and through my cards, to reflect back to us if there's anything else that the universe wants us to cover or to share.
Okay, that's beautiful. Okay.
What do we want to talk about? The rooster keeps crowing.
Okay, so let's see what the goddesses are saying.
I got two stuck together, so when you're ready.
Ooh, okay. All right, so I got one and I'm going to pull a clarifying card. Whoa, okay.
You go first.
Okay, so I've pulled double queens, which in my deck are third eye cards,
Mm.
all about our intuition and our guidance. And this is Queen Nandi Zulu and Queen Ya Santewa. And the message is basically level up, which is what you are doing here with your podcast. Step more firmly into your voice. Everything that we've been talking about, owning your voice, owning who you are, raising your standards for how you show up in the world, which is what you're doing with this podcast. And stop shrinking and hiding. Use your guidance to call you forward. Use your intuition and your spiritual gifts to call you forward.
Oh, that's beautiful. And for all of us to hear that, because that's really what you've been sharing about yourself, your own journey. This is really an embodiment of your journey as well, and the invitation for us to follow in those footsteps, in your footsteps. So my cards came together, they were stuck together. The first card that came out was Loyal Heart, about being loyal to your integrity, being loyal to who you love, be loyal to the highest good, right? That loyalty that you give is where your attention goes. Be loyal to that. That spell casting that you talked about. Every word casts a spell, and be loyal to, be in alignment is really what it is. And then beside it was new life. So the second card represents teachability. It's new life. It's saying, don't be arrogant. You don't know everything. And that when you're being offered something, just like how you offered your beautiful book to everybody, to a diverse audience, right? You're saying, hey, everybody come learn, come and learn. You don't know, you know, and be humble in life, period. You know, like be teachable, be humble, walk softly, and stay true to yourself. And you've done that. You've done that your whole life. And I'm grateful that you came today to be on this podcast. And I think that those two cards danced well with yours.
They did. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. That is so beautiful. Yes, I love when our cards get to dance together, and we get to dance together energetically as well.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so before we go, I want to mention Abiola is currently welcoming goddesses into her Mawu's Goddess Mystery School and her upcoming Goddess of Manifesting Tobago retreat. So exciting. So to learn more about Abiola's work, you can check her out at womanifesting.com. Thank you, Abiola.
Yay! Thank you, Goddess Colette. And I have to say that while we're doing this, I just want to just share that, you know, our friendship means so much to me. When I came into Hay House as a new author and was nervous that this publishing company that means so much to me, you know, I've been with other publishers, but there's a relationship here that just means so much to me. I've followed Louise Hay's work from the beginning. It was you, Goddess Colette, that came in and befriended me and said, hello, my sister, welcome. I am here. If you have any questions, let me know. And that just meant so much to me and still does. So thank you for that.
And we have a lot of fun together, Abiola and I. I feel very blessed. I think Louise put us together for sure.
Yes.
Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you. I adore you. I really love you. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening, everyone. Until next time, I'm Colette Baron-Reid. Be well and take care.